blueberries. We have come home and washed enough of these gorgeous blueberries. We decided to make blueberry muffins. So all the other kids, we're not sure where they are, but Abby wants to be in the kitchen with me, and we're going to show you how you can take a simple recipe, spend time with your kids, and really teach them some math and really practical skills that they can use all the time. Kids in the kitchen is a great way for them to learn, no matter what you're doing. And breakfast recipes are a wonderful way for them to start cooking if they aren't already. So we have a very simple recipe. I'm going to read through the ingredients. Abby's going to put them in, and we're going to get cooking. All right, so we need 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Using measuring tools, and you don't even have to do that because this has the measurement on it. So when you have scoopers, sometimes it's hard to know how much you actually have in the scooper. So having measuring cups that have the measurement right on them for kids is really good. That way it helps them feel like they're doing right, they're getting the right amount of measurement and not too much. So that's a good thing to have around. Measurement skills, and it's just loose. It doesn't have to be packed down. So when a recipe says 2 cups of flour, you just plop it in. Now we're not doing a complicated recipe that's going to require sitting or rising. We're just doing a simple, quick blueberry recipe. And then we're just going to shake it like that. Looks about right. What do you think? All right, so put it in our bowl. And next we're going to add baking powder, okay? We're going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder. We have smaller things for smaller measurements, and this one slides back and forth, which is nice. Sometimes it's hard to have all of those on a ring and figure out which one you're supposed to use. And I'm just going to show Abby real quick. When you're doing baking soda and things like that, there's a lip right here that's made just for your measurements to scoop it off. Okay, so I'm going to let Abby do that. And we're going to put 2 teaspoons of baking powder. All right. Now we need 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. So you want to find 3/4 on there?
Sure.
And there's our salt. I've opened it up where you can just pour it right on. And if you spill, it's okay. It doesn't want to come out, does it? Oh, there it comes.
Yeah, of course
That's
I spilled
good.
it.
That's okay. And spilling is part of the process. You know, when my kids were little, when I first started, you really kind of freak out when your kids are in the kitchen because you can see flour all over the floor and you can see messes and you think how, you're going to have to clean it up. But that's how your kids learn. Does your mom let you make a mess in the kitchen?
Sometimes.
I would say that's the biggest struggle for some parents is allowing their children the mess. And it's in the mess that they're going to learn. It's easy to clean up flour. It might seem like that it's not at the time, but it is, and that's how you learn. Next, we're going to add 1 stick of softened butter. So I've softened that up. And do you know how to do that when it's in the wrapper?
I actually don't.
Okay. So we're just going to open the wrapper and kind of let the butter just fall out. Okay? And if there's big chunks left behind, you can take your spatula and just scoop it right off of the paper. Setting butter out on the counter for an hour or so will soften it enough. Or sometimes you might want to put it in the microwave just a few seconds at a time because it can melt really fast. Grant did that the other day and we had a mess in the microwave, but it was okay. Next, we're going to add 1 cup of sugar. So we can use the same measuring cup. Here's our sugar, and we're going to do 1 cup this time.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, next is 2 large eggs. What I like to do is to break the eggs in a little dish beforehand Because you know what happens? Eggshell.
Mhm.
Yeah. Have you ever eaten something that had eggshell in it?
I actually haven't, but like sometimes when I'm cooking, I'll like say, "Oh no, there's an eggshell," and I'll have to get it.
Gotta get it out. So I learned after trial and error to go ahead and put it in a small dish. That way you can get the eggshell out. And there's none in the recipes. You know, we've had that happen quite a bit around here. And Curtis does not like to eat eggshell. You've heard this story, I know. So we have to be very careful about eggshell around here. So we have 2 large eggs. We're just gonna pour right on in there. And next we're gonna do 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla is what it says, but I don't measure vanilla. Do you know, does your mom measure vanilla?
You know, she actually does not measure
I just
vanilla.
pour it. I just pour it from the jar. So here we go. Here's our vanilla. I just sort of put it in there. And sometimes I might add a little more. I like vanilla.
I love vanilla.
Vanilla's good. All right, and then this calls actually for 1/4 teaspoon of almond extract, but we don't cook with nuts. Do you guys cook with a lot of nuts at home?
Well, my mom loves cookies with nuts in it, so yes, we actually do.
I love nuts, but Grant is allergic to most tree nuts, so we've had to eliminate that, which is okay. So when you have a recipe that calls for nuts, you can either omit it or substitute it with something else. And we don't really need to substitute an extract. That's just for the flavor. Next is 1/2 cup of milk, which I already poured some milk out for you, so here's some milk for you.
Thank you.
And then I think we're gonna wait. So we need to mix this up.
Okay.
So I'll get it started because the butter is softened, but it's not melted. And we wanna mix, kind of scramble the eggs up a little bit. I call it scrambling. And this is where it can get messy in your kitchen, right? When you're mixing, because it can spill outside.
And the flour can, if you do it too fast, the flour can just go everywhere.
So we were at the farm together today, Abby. What was your favorite part about picking blueberries today?
Well, I have to say, the favorite part about picking the blueberries was eating them. That was my favorite part.
So when we were chatting today, we kept knowing that the kids were out in the field, but they didn't have their buckets yet. We knew you guys didn't have buckets. And they were gone, and they were gone. We didn't know where they went, and they came back. They had blueberries all over their hands. Do you still have them on your hands?
Well, I have to wash my hands, so I don't have them, but I have blueberry stains all over my hands.
And Grayson, we've been blueberry picking for years, and he always says, Mama, I don't think I want to go because I always get sick when we go. And I said, you get sick because you eat too many blueberries out in the field. And I'm not sure. Maybe he has a bellyache today. All right. So this batter, I'll let Abby mix it up a little bit, is really a little thick. It's not a runny batter. It's pretty thick. And I think it's because the butter is softened and not melted, which is fine. And the blueberries are going to get mixed in. And we have preheated the oven to 375. And next we're going to take our muffin tin and put muffin liners in there. You don't have to put muffin liners, but I really like to because it keeps the pan pretty clean and it's easy to serve in the liners. Now, you've been around our family long enough. How long do you think these are gonna last?
Probably a day.
If they make it till morning,
Yep.
I will be surprised. So we're gonna have to send some home with your family before you go.
Yep.
All right, now the best part is we have 2 cups of fresh blueberries. These are the gorgeous blueberries we picked today. We rinse them off, and now I'm gonna add them in. Abby's gonna fold them into our batter. One thing I did want to share with you that we learned at the farm was when you get blueberries, they have a white, kind of a powdery coating on them. Did you notice that?
Yeah, it was like pale and powdery.
That's called the bloom, and it's actually a protectant for your blueberries. And the owner there at the farm said it's best when you're storing blueberries not to wash them. She said just put them in your refrigerator. When you're ready to eat them, go ahead and wash them. That if you wash all of them, they will rot and get mushy faster. So that's a little tip to know. And the same goes for the berries that you buy in the grocery store. Don't wash them until you're ready to eat them. So these are nice and fresh, just washed, and that is looking really good. So next, I have a scooper. This is my favorite thing. I'm not good at judging how much to put into a muffin tin, but this is, I think it's just a large scoop is all that I know, but 1 scoop is the perfect amount for a muffin tin. Do you use scoops at home?
Yes, we do.
Yes, they're perfect. All right, so I'm gonna do 1. So I just do a scoop and then scrape it on the side and plop it in. So I'm gonna give that to you. You can just leave that in there.
Okay.
Now, what is your favorite blueberry recipe? What do you like to use the most?
I like blueberry parfaits. That is my
Parfait.
favorite.
Well, that's kind of fancy. So what kind of parfait? What's in your parfait?
Well, my mom, it's my favorite recipe ever. So my mom makes this homemade yogurt, and then when we pick blueberries or strawberries, we'll cut those up, put them on top, and make homemade granola. It is so good.
That sounds pretty good. Now, do you eat that for breakfast or a snack?
We
For
eat
breakfast?
that for breakfast.
That's pretty good. I think we should come to your house for that. So we're gonna fill the rest of these, and then we are gonna make a topping to go on them. We'll come back and make the topping with you. So we're gonna go ahead and fill those, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Now that we have our tin full of our batter, Abby's done a great job. They're all nice and perfect and even in there. We are gonna make them even better with a crumbly butter topping. Okay?
Sounds so good.
All right. Well, in our bowl, we have 1/2 cup of cubed butter. So it's not freezing cold, but it's not melted or super squishy. And I was telling Abby about a pastry blender. This is something that you would use when it tells you to cut into the butter in a recipe. If you're making scones, if you're making biscuits or something like that where you have to use cold butter, which is hard to work with, this is what helps and makes it really nice. So what you're gonna add to the bowl is 1/2 cup of sugar. So here we have your measuring cup. I'm gonna do 1/2 cup of sugar. Now, sometimes the fun in cooking is messing up, and sometimes messing up doesn't always mean that you can't eat it. Sometimes it's just a little different. Okay, so it's 1/2 cup of sugar, so I think we have a little bit more than 1/2 in there.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So, you know what? Having more sugar isn't as bad, I don't think, do you? Now, having more salt, we've done that before, and that's not good at all.
Nope.
But sugar is not so bad.
Nope.
You pour it right on in there.
Okay.
And then we need 1/3 cup of flour.
Okay.
So when you're doing measurement, there's all different kinds of measurement. You're talking about fractions here when we're doing 1/2 cup of sugar to 1/3 of a cup of flour. There's different measurements, and it really helps children to visually see living math. When you're doing math on paper, sometimes it's difficult to really imagine what that's like. But using food to help with those measurements makes it concrete and understand that you are going to use that in real life.
That's about 1/3.
So 1/3 is way down here.
I thought you were
Okay.
talking about a cup.
So we're gonna pour some back in here, and that's okay. So the other good thing in cooking, so let's see. So 1/3 is way down here. We need maybe just a tiny bit more.
Okay.
Is if you think you've made a mistake, just ask, recheck the recipe, and then it's all good. All right, I'm gonna pour our flour in. And now we need 1½ teaspoons of cinnamon. So there's our little measurement. I love cinnamon. I love cinnamon on anything. As you can see, we keep a giant container of cinnamon that I use in everything. Okay, so that's already at the 1/2, so you can put that in, and then we're gonna move it back to the 1 when you're done with that, okay? And I think cooking is really a learning process, kind of like driving a car. It takes time to learn. You know, I really wasn't taught to cook when I was young, and I wish that I had, because when I got married, have you heard the stories of Curtis telling how he used to sneak out to Arby's after the meals that I would cook?
You know, I have heard a couple stories about that.
So I'm definitely been teaching my boys how to cook since a young age, and you've been here. Grayson and Grant do a lot of cooking. So it's very important to share your kitchen. I know moms that it's hard. It's hard to give up control, but it can have great results. And their wives later on will thank you for that. Okay, so now to use a pastry blender, we're just gonna kind of do, just pushing it down like this, okay? And it's gonna break up the butter into tiny little pebbles is what it's gonna be like, okay? So we're gonna do that. And you wanna give it a try?
Kind of getting stuck up in there.
Okay, now we've got our crumble all mixed up, and it's just crumbled. You can kind of pick it up with your fingers like this, and Abby and I are going to drizzle it, sprinkle it over the tops of our muffins. So you want to do that?
Sure.
Okay. So we have got our crumble topping all on here, and they look ready to eat now, don't they? Look so good. But we're going to put them in the oven at 375 for 20 minutes, and then we'll come back and see what they look like. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, our muffins have come out of the oven, and I think we're all starved to death now, aren't we? They smell so good. So this is what they look like when they come out of the oven. That topping just makes them really pretty, doesn't it? And I think it's going to give it a nice crispy crunch. So we are going to transfer them to a plate and let them cool a little bit more. And hopefully we won't have anyone sneaking in too early to steal our muffins. Having muffins around...
Great, you're going to eat them all.
That's exactly what happens around here. We can't keep anything around here.
Nope.
So making muffins in advance, making several batches and freezing them is a great way to do something like this, especially if you have fresh fruit. They freeze well, they can keep, you can pull them out whenever you need them. I freeze things in packages of 8 because there's 4 of us here at home. So if you want that for breakfast, you can pull them out, they'll thaw overnight, and it's simple and easy. So a little bit of work can last you over and over again. We're going to have a printable for this recipe for you. And you could do this with strawberries. You could do it with cherries. And I think you could even do it with peaches. Do you like peaches?
I love peaches.
Have you ever picked peaches before?
You know what? I have not, but I love peaches.
All right. Well, I think we should go peach picking.
We should.
It's peach picking season, so I think we should do that as well.
We should.
All right, so this is our blueberry muffin recipe that we made with our fresh blueberries we picked today from Sandhill Farms. A simple recipe. We talked about measurement. We talked about the different ways that you can measure and how that really helps your children with concrete math life skill ideas for them to see it and how it works out. So we hope you enjoy.